It's the year 2017, which, to Back to the Future fans like me, means we're officially in the future. I haven't seen anyone who dislikes those movies, and when we got to 2015, there was new interest in them. So much so that people started flirting with the idea of another movie. Of course, age, health, and other things made it impossible, but what if it wasn't? What if we could make a real, whole Back to the Future 4 starting in our time? Well, I want to give it a try. Now, of course, the series gets pretty complicated, so I tried to make everything fit, but there might be some things that don't. If you're cool with that, I am too, so buckle up and let's go. Back to the Future 4 starts with Marty McFly's alarm going off today in 2017. He turns it off and looks at it strangely. Then comes out dressed for work, as his wife Jennifer is getting their kids ready for school. Marlene is watching YouTube on her phone, and Marty asks Jennifer, when did she get that? She says, for Christmas, don't you remember? Marty says, I thought we got you a hoverboard. She says that too and points to the corner. Marty is very confused by what he sees. Later, Marty's hybrid car awkwardly parks at Hill Valley University. He frantically asks people if anyone knows about time travel. He finds one kid who is doing physics research, but in the middle of talking to her, her notebook turns into an iPad, and she only wants to talk about Instagram. Marty runs away from her, and everyone else avoids him until he finds one student, who says he's in engineering. Marty says that his car won't fly, the phones are different, and something's wrong. The guy asks, are you high? Marty says, you know what? I need to see Doc. Okay, where's Doc? He died last year. You are high. Not long after, they park at the junkyard in the kid's car. Marty finds and looks through the pieces of the smashed Delorean. The guy says his name is Eddie. Marty says good, he might need an egghead to help him out. Eddie says, egghead, I like that, kinda old-fashioned. Marty says that his friend Doc invented time travel. Egghead says, well, he should be world famous. Marty says, maybe one day. Look, you gotta help me rebuild this thing. It's a Delorean. It takes 1.21 gigawatts. Wait, he interrupts him. What the hell's a gigawatt? 1 billion watts. Oh, a gigawatt. Marty then curses, saying that the flux capacitor isn't there. But they have one more option. They arrive at the Clayton residence, and Clara's family directs Marty to the family train, where Egghead helps him fix it up. Marty says he's going to 1885. Doc's there, and he already knows about time travel. It's the safest bet. If I don't come back, Marty says, tell my family I love them. And after some difficulty, the train lifts off and disappears. In 1885, Doc is outside his blacksmith shop, pumping water, when Marty arrives. Doc says, oh, this must be heavy. Marty tells him what happened. Doc says that it was a decoherence event. The timeline was being changed from the past. Marty asks what would have happened if he had stayed. Doc says it sounds like he wasn't part of the new timeline, so he would have been converted to something else, most likely vaporized into thin air, and he's lucky he left when he did. Marty mentions the stolen flux capacitor. Doc says that without the time circuits, it could only have gone to its last 3 settings. Marty says those were 2015, 1985, or here. So a short time later, Marty and Doc head to town, and the people are buzzing. They say that a horseless carriage blazed through town, and a young lady in crazy clothes got out and knocked down Mad Dog Tannen. But she looked close at him, shook her head, took one of his pistols, and disappeared. We now cut to 1955. Doc is home talking to Einstein about how happy he is that one of his inventions worked. And he says maybe one day people will know who he is. He turns to find Mad Dog Tannen's giant pistol in his face. The girl says, Emmett Brown, your name was on that machine. Give me the time circuits. He asks who she is. She says Tiffany. Doc is speechless. After a second, she drives off. Soon after, there's another squeal of tires, and the 1885 DeLorean arrives in Doc's yard, which has been repaired with train parts. Marty gets out, reminding himself that he has to get the car back in the cave at the right time, then runs into Doc's house, telling him to look out. Doc says the girl was already here, and she took the time circuits. Before they can say more, the DeLorean's horn honks. Marty runs back, where Doc from 1885 is in the passenger seat, asking him what his younger self said. Marty explains that the girl took the time circuits, and Doc asks if she has the tools to connect them to the flux capacitor. Marty has to go back and forth between the two Docs, translating their technobabble. They eventually figure out that she has what she needs to go wherever she wants. But 1955 Doc says that she's still here, and he saw her go into town. So old Doc drives out with Marty. They arrive in 1955 Hill Valley at night, and eventually spot Tiffany's car. They follow her to the soda shop, and seconds later, she drags the young Biff out, kicking him and calling him a creep and an abuser. He says, "What are you, one of my old girlfriends?" Marty is shocked. He recognizes her face. Tiffany aims the pistol at Biff's head, but after a second she says, "You're too young," and drives off. They try to chase her, but her car takes flight and disappears. They go back and tell the other Doc what happened. He mentions her name, and Marty then realizes who she is. He says it's Tiffany Tannen, Biff's granddaughter. Both Docs say "Great Scott" at the same time. Marty goes back and forth between them as they explain that she's trying to kill her own grandfather, and if she succeeds, there won't be a timeline change. There will be a paradox, since there are no possible universes where that can occur. And thus, instead of branching, the whole space-time continuum will shut down.
Granted, that's a worst-case scenario. The destruction might in fact be very localized, limited to merely our own galaxy. Well, that's a relief.
Through Marty, the Docs figure out that they can pinpoint her whereabouts based on the heat signature of the tracks of her car. And they realize she went to 1995, the year she was born. 50s Doc watches them take off, but the car arrives in outer space, where the Earth is gone. They both scream, "Holy shit!" and the windows start cracking, but Doc frantically changes the setting to a few months earlier, and the car disappears again. They crash land on a normal street. Doc says they were lucky. If they had gone any further, they would have ceased to exist. They quickly head to a gas station and ask for directions to the Tannen house. But as soon as the cashier gets done talking, he disappears. Doc says that the space-time continuum is breaking down, and they'll have to split up to fix as much as they can. Marty says he'll go to the Tannen house. Doc says he's going to go back to get some help, and fix as much as he can. He asks Marty how old he was in 1995. Marty gets hung up on the math, and Doc says never mind. He'll use the Marty from this year regardless. Marty drops him off in front of his own house, leaves the 1885 Delorean, and borrows the newer one from the garage. Marty drives to the Tannen house and looks in the window. He sees a 60-year-old Biff roughing up his daughter as a baby cries. He says to himself, "What did you do to them, Biff?" But within seconds, Tiff kicks the door in, puts the pistol to Biff's head, and drags him outside. She throws Biff on the hood of her car and flies off. Marty chases them on the ground in the DeLorean, and as the car goes, he can see things breaking down further, as signs and other cars are disappearing on the road. They arrive at Eastwood Ravine, where Tiff hovers the car, threatening to dump Biff off, and the space-time continuum is falling apart around them. Marty gets out of the car and yells, surprising her, but Tiff says that Biff is a monster. Marty eventually tells her that you can't control how you were born, only what happens after. After a moment, the car flies downward. Marty screams, then drives to the bottom of the ravine. But when he gets there, he finds out that she landed the car safely. Biff is on the ground, whimpering. Tiff gets out and hugs Marty. Then after a second, Biff hugs them both, saying he had no idea he would hurt her so much and promising to change. Tiff asks what happens now. Marty says that there's another Tiff, the baby in the house, and that she's going to have a better life. But it's Tiff's job to make the most of her own life. They then both look back at Biff, noticing that he pooped himself. Tiff's car parks in their fixed 2017. As they both get out, Marty says he needs to thank a friend who goes to this school. But there's a yell from behind them. It's Egghead, in a lab coat. He says, "Dr. Tannen, we need you." And Marty looks at the Hill Valley University sign, which now says Emmett Brown Institute for Temporal Physics. Tiff goes with Egghead, and he hands Marty a letter. It's from his own younger self, saying that he and Doc fixed everything. Plus, one more thing. Marty shakes his head, smiling, gets in his own car, and flies off. So, the goal here was to have a fun homage to the previous 3 films, while also playing with some other ideas of time travel. Hopefully, it all fit well enough to work. Let me know what you'd like to see if we could make a Back to the Future 4 movie, and if you like the channel, check out my Patreon, where you can get shoutouts, special perks, chat with me on Skype, and other stuff. Thanks for watching, and catch you next time.